Hi, I'm Jean, and I'm here with Tim.
Hi, everybody.
We're going to talk about today what Independent California Institute is all about. So take it away, Tim. You've been thinking. I hear you've been thinking.
Well, I've been thinking about our notion of like, what does it mean to be Cal-centric, which is, one of our pillars of the institute is to sort of create a discussion or a narrative that is California centric,
Mhm.
which is why we named the podcast Cal-centric or California centric, and I think that's a good place to begin.
Okay. So, what does it mean to be California centric?
Okay, so this is what I've been thinking about how to explain it, and it doesn't really need that much work, but there are some things that helps. Like I think Californians, to be Cal-centric, we kind of have to change what the word domestic means to us. That domestic affairs, the domestic national policy. I think California should stop kind of thinking of it in the U.S. terms, United States terms, and kind of like shrink it and have it fit our California life, our California society and culture, and our political structure and activities and debates and so, and do that in a kind of significant, healthy way, the way that, say, Canada talks about Canadian issues, and the way France or Germany talk about their domestic issues. And I think we're of a size and scale, we Californians, that it's kind of necessary if we want to keep a cohesive uh, and well-running society going. If we want to make it, make California and everything that there is about us, our work, our activities, our lifestyle, if we want to make it as good and successful as we can, then we need to start talking about California. Domestic needs to start meaning California for us so that we can talk about California in very productive ways. I guess another way to put it is sort of, you know, is sort of leaning into the national part. I mean, we like to call California a nation state, and being Cal-centric, and I think the sort of reason we formed the Independent California Institute is to lean into the nation part, to lean into it. I think we reflexively talk about our California in a state, one of 50 state contexts. I kind of want to lean away from that for a couple of reasons and lean more into the nation, the national part. Again, because we are of a scale and size, and our place in the world kind of warrants it and needs it.
So, in practical terms, what are we going to do? I mean, I know one thing we're doing is every week we publish a newsletter full of information information and stories. We're essentially an aggregator of stories about California and things California is doing as a entity. What else can we do?
Well, so let's stop there just for a second, because I think the reason why we do it is in pursuance of creating a national discussion for Californians. That's a real national discussion, and you know, there's an obvious Eastern Seaboard, East Coast bias in our U.S. national news. I mean, we're kind of far away, and
Duh. Yeah.
so
No kidding.
so not only do we have, are we of the scale to have a national Cal-centric discussion, and that we need it, we don't have the apparatus for it, though, unfortunately. What we do have is very centered toward the Eastern Seaboard. And if I would want to be provocative, I would say in a colonial way. I mean, everything in our worldview, in a sort of California gaze, if you want to put that, it defaults to an Eastern Seaboard gaze. That to us is natural. That to us is normal. And I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should sort of work away from that as much as we can. And I'm doing this mostly in my mind for practical reasons, so that we can run this fourth or fifth biggest economy, in the best way possible, and that we can support people in our society, support our communities in a direct way based on our values, rather than trying to go through a very Byzantine federal uh, process.
It sounds like, in a way, what we're talking about is consciousness raising, like the old second wave women's movement. I think we need to raise our consciousness about California, and that's part of our mission, including taking polls of Californians and how we feel about California, but also talking about how big California is really, because people really don't understand that at all. Um,
Californians don't understand it.
Californians don't, right?
We just think that the other states must live in this kind of state world of theirs like we do, but they don't. I mean, I was sort of oblivious to it until I was lived on the East Coast for a couple of years, and it was so strange for me to drive through several states to get somewhere.
I get it. And another thing is that you don't realize how unique California is, because we're in the middle of it, but you see it all the time in our California culture is made fun of all over the country, but and recognized. It is recognized, good or bad, by the rest of the states and the rest of the world.
So, okay, I was thinking about this too as I was thinking about putting together this episode in a very direct, obvious way. When I say CalCentric and what we're working on at the institute, that it's political. I mean, it kind of has been forced upon us for due to some political events of the last few years, and so we think of it that way. And I want to keep talking about that, but the political part. But even here, I want to make it CalCentric. That is, uh, stop talking about how bad American democracy is and start talking about California democracy. Um, we're kind of playing in. We're leaving a vacancy, a void, by always talking about what's going on in the in Washington, the United States. And I think even people like us, who are interested in maximizing California autonomy, I think we fall prey to this in sort of talking about how horrible it is that we only have two senators and that these states the size of small California counties have them and so on. But while we're talking about that, and it's outrageous. It's not a democracy. We should be angry and talking about it. But when we talk about that, we're not talking about California's democracy, which is kind of similarly crazy. I mean, yeah, it's crazy to have 50 states, some of them super small, some like nation size. It's crazy to have 55 counties in California. And, 110 million, and Alpine, which is like 1,000, if that, or a couple thousand. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when we keep trying to fix their problem, their issues, because it is kind of theirs, it reeks of the East Coast, our political issues, and the way America talks about it. And I think it's important to talk about that stuff, obviously, but we're powerless there. And
Mm-hmm.
I think being concentric is a way to empower ourselves.
We're running out of time here, so maybe that's where we want to wind. Got any last words for the introduction of what Independent California Institute is all about, what we have to offer?
Yes, I think what we have to offer is community, is the beginnings of community, because that's the other thing I think we mean when we say CalCentric at our institute. We mean creating community for Californians around California values, around California um, worldview, and we're trying to, like you said, in a conscious raising type way, but also in a practical way, give people the chance to get involved, to maybe look at our polls, read our California Centric newsletter, and start looking at what's out there in terms of groups trying to maximize California's autonomy and kind of maximize California's democracy on our terms. So you can get involved, because it's going to be a kind of tough 4 years, and it's good to, there's power with people. It's good to sort of connect with people. So maybe we can be a maybe we can be a stepping stone for some people. And if we are, I think that that will be a big accomplishment right now.
All right. Where are we gonna? What's our next episode gonna be?
Well, we can always continue. This is an evergreen. We'll be talking about this part. But
True.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about California culture too, our value system, and
Hmm.
get explicit about it, kind of encourage a discussion, and why everything that is happening in the rest of the country offends us so much.
Hmm.
Because when you get to the level of offense, to the degree that we Californians are experiencing it, that means you're seeing two value systems colliding. And they can't make sense of us with their value system, the rest of the country, and we can't make sense of them. And they get sort of mocking and a little fearful if you look at it, because it's kind of scary to deal with something you don't understand. And we get offended and we get kind of shocked. And I think that's also a fruitful discussion to have about, you know why does MAGA America offend Californians so much?
So, if I'm hearing you right, we're going to talk about how big California is, how unique California culture is, and what basically it entails. We're going to talk about how we create community. What am I leaving out?
Yeah, that, and of course the political part. We're going to have to talk about the political part. We have no choice. That's just being realistic.
Hmm.
So that too, but we're not going to just talk about that. We're not going to just talk about the U.S. We're going to talk about us, Californians, we, the
Hmm.
people of California.
All right. Well, thanks, Tim,
Sure.
and we'll see you all next time.
Yep. Till next time.
Independent California Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit think tank. We educate the public and conduct research on greater self governance for California.